I think it will be very difficult for Mr. McConnell to explain how, if the public concludes that this person is very well qualified, that the Senate should stand in the way simply for political reasons. None of the founding fathers thought that when it comes to the president carrying out his duties, he should do it for 3 years and then on the last year stop doing it.
President Obama earlier today talking about the vacancy on the Supreme Court. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the Republican Senate wants to put the brakes on any consideration of a possible nominee. But President Obama says he will make sure that his pick has no particular ideology or agenda, as he calls on the Senate to fulfill its constitutional duty. Perfect place to bring in our panel. And on the left, Skyping in from Ohio, Ohio State Senator Capri S. Cafaro. Capri is the dean of the Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus, which means she's been serving in Columbus for a time. And Skyping in from Indianapolis on the right, former White House spokesman for President George W. Bush, Pete Seat. Pete is now senior project manager at Hathaway Strategies. Capri, ladies first. How can this president say this in this situation when in the past Chuck Schumer said, nothing in the last year for George W. Bush, and back in 1992, Joe Biden as a senator said, nothing for Bush 41. Why isn't that same practice okay now that the shoe is on the other foot?
Well, let's remember that President Obama is neither Chuck Schumer nor Joe Biden. I realize Joe Biden is the vice president, but he's neither a presidential candidate. He's a lame duck VP. This isn't his constitutional duty. It's that of President Obama's. So, I think we need to expect that he's going to bring forward a nominee. And we need to recognize that I at least believe that the United States Senate has an equal and important duty to advise and consent on those nominations. Now, they can reject them, which I would expect they would, and that's fine. But I think they do need to go through the appropriate process.
Pete Seat, to you, what's good for the elephant? Shouldn't it be okay for the donkey to use the mascots of the two parties?
Yeah, the point you made with Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden, what's now being called the Biden rule, is a very important point to make, because it shows that Republicans who say that a nominee from Barack Obama won't get a hearing aren't that crazy. They're just saying what Joe Biden said not that long ago.
Right. But let's remember, though, that Joe Biden, if you listen to the rest of it, Joe Biden actually said at the end that we do need to go through the process and hear the nomination, and ultimately Justice, I believe that they went through that process.
Well, let's talk about the process. And Pete, it's very interesting because the White House putting out trial balloons that kind of sound like the being crazy like a fox. Suddenly the name whispered around the executive mansion is a Republican governor from Nevada, Brian Sandoval, who of course has experience on the bench. He was a judge before becoming governor. Is this basically just a political ploy? Because really, the president, given his ideological moorings, he's not going to turn to a Republican like Brian Sandoval, is he?
He might, but real quick on Biden, he said the president shouldn't nominate, but if the president does nominate, the Senate should not hear the nominee. I've watched the video. That's exactly what he said. I think this Sandoval trial balloon, trolling, whatever you want to call it, it could actually be a master stroke if President Obama actually nominates Brian Sandoval. You have a very popular approval rating in the high 60s, Republican governor of a swing state who is pro-choice, supports the court's ruling on gay marriage. Republicans are going to find it hard to say no to one of their own. And it's kind of what Obama did to John Huntsman a couple of years ago by shipping him off to China. He gets Brian Sandoval off the campaign trail. It could be brilliant, but I still think it's unlikely.
Well, it was the old saying, only Nixon could go to China. So, Capri, perhaps only Obama could nominate a Republican like Sandoval. 30 seconds remain, Capri. Do you think he's on the level with this? It's not a political stunt?
Well, I think it could be a political stunt, but I think that just as my colleague there outlined, this is good politics as well, because what's going to happen is that if he does bring forward this very popular Republican governor of a swing state, as was just described, it's going to be very hard not to sit for Mitch McConnell and his colleagues to sit on their hands, because they're going to look like children.
Well, you know, it was General Schwarzkopf who said that the proceedings on Capitol Hill were the world's largest federally subsidized daycare center. So with that on both sides of the aisle, we'll take it. Ohio State Senator Cafaro tonight from Warren, and Pete Seat on the right side of issues from Indianapolis. You have our thanks. You heard what they had to say. Agree or disagree? Send your comments to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Back with more after this.